My friend Jimmy Landry, super talented singer-songwriter, said to me, he said, man, I got a weak ticker, so I want you to be ready because I'm going to need your support when I go to Duke and get my new heart. And then he wrote a song about his old heart to his new heart, and he died suddenly before that special day. This talk is dedicated to everybody mentioned in it, but specifically it's dedicated to my mom, who's living right now actually with frontal temporal lobe degeneration. It's as though I'm like watching her disappear in front of me with no ability to speak and eat. And there's something right after that, and that is that we live in a culture that is denying us of our connection to death. And we live in a place where I believe you're a miracle. And those two things don't go together, because if you're a miracle, you should not be separated from anything, specifically your death. And I don't know anything about how to die, and I don't know what it's like to be dead, but I have been with people who are and have died. And I'm more alive in this time now since 2020, being touched by 2 men with glioblastoma and saying yes to serving them at the end of their life. Every time I show up, I'm more alive. It's just like I had to be ready to remember, like my friend Tracy had to remember. And when she was remembering, she texted me and she said, "Can you build David's casket?" And I said, "Of course." Little did I know that every day since that moment, everything would be radically different. So in that time when I was remembering, I spent 2 days deep inside their love, trying to understand his music taste, trying to understand his peaceful ways, and I came out with this simple pine box. And as a maker, this was the most important, most meaningful thing I'd made of hundreds of things I'd made. I wanted to know their love. 5 months later, I met a stranger, Ethan Sisser. And the night I met him, I was so struck by his ability to presence himself in the pain that he was in. Both David and Ethan had glioblastoma. And I went to bed that night with my partner, Joni, and I said, "Were we just in the presence of God?" And she said, "Absolutely." You know, Ethan longed for one thing, and it was to live in community, actually. 48 hours later, when I was in the emergency room with him, I asked him if he'd considered dying in community. I had no damn idea what I was asking him, and I became his medical advocate just after that. You see, he had to leave Asheville and go to Charlotte. I really think he had to stay alive longer so the world would know who in the hell he is. And they would meet him in what he called not beast mode, but his angel mode. And he would speak words where people would respond to say, "You saved my life." And he met another angel, Aditi Sete Brown. She brought us together, another group of strangers, to hold him in a sangha in his last days. And we were directed by his wish to have his dying process filmed. And the miracle and the result of all that time together is this amazing full-length documentary film called The Last Ecstatic Days. And none of us have been the same since. I made another casket. I had really great help decorating it, as you can see. And Ethan became known through his mantra: "I'm embodied, I'm empowered, I'm ecstatic, just as I am." And when they lay me down to rest, I'm going up to the place that's the best. And when they lay me down to die, I'm going up to the spirit in the sky. Thank you, Norman Greenbaum. This is a picture of community-supported death care. That was Carolina Memorial Sanctuary. And this is the place that your community has responded to Ethan and what we're building together. A place that the world is watching, called the Center for Conscious Living and Dying. It's down this path where people walk with intentionality, are be willed to their place that they can last be held. I'll talk about some of those folks now. My friend Richard sent me a text and said, "I need you." I showed up moments later. I said, "For what?" He said, "I want you to bring those strangers to my house so they can hold me." And then 13 days later, he died at 5:20 with me in his house. Grace showed up, and I was so struck by Grace's light from the first moment. That was miracle enough. But what I realized, knowing her for 2 months as she drank it all in, is all she wanted to do was be held in a place of trusted love, like she's being held by this tree. My friend Miranda, She had had the most difficult life I'd ever witnessed, it seemed. And then she turned 50, and it seemed like everything turned around. And then she got an aggressive cancer diagnosis. What the fuck? She said, can you help me? So we made a plan, and within days, she was passed. One morning, I got there, and I fell in love with a 72-year-old Suriname woman named Patricia who was nonverbal because of her disease. She loved to party and dance, and she was so committed to taking care of others. You know what the miracle of her time was at CCLD? She died at the exact moment we started the grand opening celebration. We lit a fire recently, a crossing fire. The miracle I saw among many that night was that the other resident who's dying there was at this fire. What if we held your fire and we stayed watch until you passed? And we believed actually in the miracles that were going to happen during that time. There's only one way to do this, actually, is I have to actually believe I'm worth every bit of your time and energy, and you have to do the same with me. We have to walk down the road holding the hands of our small selves, not looking back, only looking forward. We have to believe that only love prevails. We're being asked to do something different as it relates to our death and our dying of us and everyone else. We're being asked to show up and remember what we already know. Believe in miracles.